Okay, so I don't say this lightly, but this might be one of the most layered, complicated relationship stories I have ever come across on Reddit. Because on the surface, it sounds simple. Wife doesn't like husband's mustache. But the more you read, the more you realize there is so much more going on here. Stick with me because this one really got under my skin. So we have a 42-year-old woman who has been with her husband for 13 years. For most of that time, he's been clean-shaven. Recently, he decided he wants to grow out a mustache just to try something new, experiment a little. Normal enough, right? Here's where it stops being simple. The mustache doesn't just look bad to her. It actually triggers a deeply buried memory from her childhood. When she was 12 or 13 years old, there was a predator in her neighborhood. A man who used to expose himself to her and her friends. And this man, this creep, had a wispy little mustache that looks remarkably similar to the one her husband is now growing. And when you pair that mustache with her husband's 80s-style glasses, it reminds her of a hand-sketched wanted poster she remembers seeing in her neighborhood as a kid. Just sit with that for a second. Every time she looks at her husband right now, she's not seeing her husband. She's being pulled back to being a 12-year-old girl, scared in her neighborhood. That's not a preference. That's not just finding something unattractive. That's trauma. And the effects are real and immediate. She has zero desire to kiss him. Zero desire to be intimate with him. She says she doesn't even want him to touch her unexpectedly anymore. And this is significant because she describes herself as someone with a very strong physical touch love language. That spontaneous, affectionate physical connection is something she genuinely cherishes in their relationship. And now it's gone. Because the predator from her childhood used to appear unexpectedly in situations that felt safe. So now, when her husband reaches for her, her nervous system isn't registering husband. It's registering something else entirely. She sat down and explained all of this to him. All of it. The childhood memories, the trauma response, how it's affecting her physically and emotionally. And here's where I need you to pay close attention, because his response is something else. He told her that instead of him shaving the mustache, she should work on her reaction. He actually suggested she treat this as exposure therapy. Like, use looking at her husband's face as a way to get over her childhood trauma. He compared it to how she once dealt with a phobia of water bugs. He compared her sexual trauma response to a fear of bugs. And on top of that, he told her that she was being controlling, that she was infringing on his bodily autonomy by asking him to shave. Now look, bodily autonomy is real, and it matters. Nobody gets to dictate what their partner does with their own body. That's true. But there is a massive difference between preference and trauma. And the audacity of telling someone whose nervous system is being hijacked by a childhood memory to just get over it, so you can keep your mustache? But wait. Because now she gives us a little more context, and this is where the story gets even more complicated. She mentions that her husband has some very strong opinions about her appearance. She has given away multiple perfumes because he asked her to stop wearing them. He actually insisted they go pick out a perfume together that she would wear instead. He regularly comments on how much he appreciates and finds attractive her hair removal efforts, something she admits she probably wouldn't keep up as consistently if it didn't matter so much to him. He talked her into buying lingerie for herself even though she wasn't really into it, and she pushed through her discomfort to make him happy. So, let's get this straight. This is a man who has shaped and influenced his wife's grooming, her scent, her undergarments, and she has gone along with all of it to make him happy. She has repeatedly adjusted her own comfort and preferences for him. And the one time she comes to him and says, "This specific thing is causing me genuine psychological distress rooted in childhood trauma," his answer is that she needs to fix herself. She also makes a really important point. She's not asking him to be clean-shaven. She doesn't have a problem with facial hair in general. She's not triggered when he's a little scruffy all over. It's this particular mustache, groomed in this particular way, that surfaced this memory. She hadn't even thought about the neighborhood predator in decades until this came up. She's not walking around afraid of every man with a mustache. It's specifically this, on her husband's face, with his glasses, looking back at her in their home. She's not asking for much. She's asking him not to cultivate this one specific style. And he's choosing the mustache. The comments on this post were intense, and honestly, I think rightfully so. Because a lot of people picked up on the same thing I did, the pattern here is concerning. This isn't just about facial hair. This is about a husband who has consistently prioritized his own preferences and aesthetics in the relationship, has had significant influence over how his wife presents herself, and then the moment she asks for one accommodation rooted in real psychological pain, he calls her controlling and tells her to do therapy homework on his face. That's not a mustache problem. That's a respect problem. Now, to be fair, people do have the right to make choices about their own bodies. And she does acknowledge that. She's not trying to be unreasonable. She knows there's a tension here between his autonomy and her well-being. That's exactly why she's asking Reddit. She genuinely wants to know if she's being unfair. But I think the answer is pretty clear. Asking your partner not to do something that causes you genuine trauma-based distress, especially when you have consistently accommodated their preferences for years, is not controlling. That's communication. That's vulnerability. That's trusting your partner enough to tell them something deeply personal and painful. His response was to dismiss it, to minimize it, to reframe her trauma as her problem to solve. And that, to me, says everything. So, I want to know what you think. Is she being unfair? Should he shave the mustache, or does his bodily autonomy win out here? And what do you make of that context she gave us? The perfumes, the lingerie, the hair removal. Does that change things for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this one, stories that actually make you think, go ahead and subscribe. I post new Reddit content every single day, and trust me, there is never a shortage of situations that will absolutely blow your mind.